is a presentation of the Documentary Consortium.
Reverend Myung has been spending vast sums of money lately, investing in tourism and industry in North Korea, and trying to buy a university in Bridgeport, Connecticut for $50 million. But Moon's objectives have remained a mystery. Now Frontline has completed a revealing year-long investigation of Moon.
Excuse me.
According to a highly placed source in the Unification Church, a top priority mission was to stop this report from airing. Tonight, the story of Reverend Moon. 15 years ago, Moon was best known as a cult leader. But today, Moon presides over a financial, political, and media empire. Frontline investigates the extent of his power and the ultimate sources of his funding.
Here is what disturbs me. It is the lack of knowledge of who is behind it, where the funding is coming from, and what are their ultimate objectives.
Tonight, the resurrection of Reverend Moon.
With funding provided by the financial support of viewers like you, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This is Frontline.
On February 9th, 1991, in Rapid City, South Dakota, more than 1,000 people rallied in support of U.S. troops fighting in the Persian Gulf. The rally was sponsored in part by a group of local veterans. Diane Peterson was the rally's principal organizer.
I'm a vet myself, and I had a sister over there, and I really just wanted to do something in support of the troops. So I organized what I call the Little Yellow Ribbon Walk.
It's great. Many more than I expected.
And I was approached by the American Freedom Coalition, who told me that they had a rally planned for the same day and wanted to merge with me.
The American Freedom Coalition was a group few people in Rapid City had heard of. And one citizen, Marv Camera, was curious.
About the same time, I noticed a billboard on the east side of Rapid City that said, support our troops, join the Freedom March, and on that same sign was the American Freedom Coalition. You know, when people buy billboards, it takes money, and local groups don't spend that kind of money. I get to thinking, where is this? I ask my congressmen and senators, and they don't tell me. They don't give me the information. So I go to the library, and I find some interesting things. The American Freedom Coalition is an extension of the Unification Church, Moonies for short.
Then find out Unification Church is behind it. That sort of threw me. I say to myself, what are they trying to gain from this? Because everybody's heard of the Unification Church. We've all heard of the Reverend Moon. What's he got behind it?
I felt a little bit abused because I felt I was used. My influence with the veterans organizations was probably a little bit used.
The vets did not know who they were associated with, and that is their own damn fault. One has to be very careful when people start waving the flag, finding out really what is behind it, what are their motives. We have a weakness in this country to almost give away the bank if someone waves the flag high enough and long enough, especially if he packs a Bible.
The day before the Rapid City rally, the 18th Annual Conservative Political Action Conference was underway in Washington. Part cocktail party, part political bazaar, part serious examination of the issues. Its sponsors included pillars of the American right, such as the Heritage Foundation and the American Conservative Union. There was also the American Freedom Coalition. Robert Grant, president of the American Freedom Coalition, spoke at a conference banquet. In his remarks, Grant announced that the AFC was sponsoring pro-Desert Storm rallies, not just in South Dakota, but in all 50 states.
With governors and congressmen and senators and veterans organizations working together to send a message across the seas to Saddam Hussein and the men and women of Desert Storm.
Once again, let's say, God bless America. God bless. Come on, God bless America.
The American Freedom Coalition's Desert Storm rallies are only the latest effort by Sun Myung Moon to influence American public opinion. Moon's Unification movement has long supported the projection of American military power overseas.
With a mission to find a job to be done. He's missing his wife and his children.
Moon has also consistently promoted a conservative political agenda in the United States. His efforts have not gone unnoticed at the White House. Douglas Weed was a special assistant to President Bush, responsible for liaison with conservative groups.
I'd say right now there are probably two groups among conservative organizations that really have an infrastructure, that have grassroots clout. Concerned Women of America would, and American Freedom Coalition would.
Vice President George Bush, the Republican nominee.
During the 1988 election, the AFC printed and distributed 30 million pieces of political literature, including these glossy voter scorecards.
I think the scorecards and some of the independent literature published had an enormous effect. In fact, we had huge notebooks filled with published materials from a wide variety of organizations. The best was probably AFC's. There was by far the slickest and the finest produced material. And when that doesn't cost you anything and is not charged against the campaign and is widely distributed to mailing lists across the country, that has a very important impact.
Sponsoring 50 national rallies.
The AFC's activities have prompted renewed questions about Sun Myung Moon's involvement in American politics. The AFC calls itself a grassroots organization committed to supporting conservative causes. AFC leaders deny that their group is an appendage of Moon's movement, and they are sensitive about the issue. When we asked Robert Grant to discuss AFC ties to Moon, he refused. In a letter to Frontline, Grant stated, "I see no point in speaking with you either on camera or off camera."
Good afternoon, American Freedom Coalition. Please hold.
And when Frontline reporter Eric Nadler visited AFC headquarters, no one would talk.
We were just here hoping someone could speak to us.
Not at this time.
Okay, not at any time according to the
Thank you.
Okay, have a nice day.
You too.
We had hoped to ask Robert Grant about allegations that the AFC is violating federal law, namely the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Just before World War II, Congress passed the act, concerned that Japanese and German interests in the U.S. were influencing American public opinion. The act states that any organization involved in political activities and controlled or directed by a foreign principal must register with the Justice Department. It must also report on its activities and provide detailed accounts of its foreign sources of funding. Is the American Freedom Coalition a foreign agent? In 1989, Robert Grant wrote in the Washington Post that more than $5 million, one-third of the AFC's money, came from business interests of the Unification Church. Church officials say that their money comes from overseas, primarily from Japan. Media analyst Brent Bozell is a member of the AFC National Policy Board.
If it were to come out that what the AFC is doing is being done at the direction of the Reverend Moon, it would lose its 50 chapters overnight. that allegation has been out there since the day that AFC was formed, and it hasn't stuck because nobody has come up with the smoking gun that he's done it.
But Moon's influence over the AFC is underscored by this 1988 letter Frontline obtained from a source who once worked within the Moon organization. AFC President Robert Grant, writing to Reverend Moon, thanks him for investing heavily and helping to bring the AFC into being. Grant concludes by telling Moon, "Without your leadership, vision, and the support of your devoted followers, the AFC would not exist." The last time most Americans paid attention to Myung Moon was nearly a decade ago. These are the images many still retain of Moon and the Moonies, as his followers once called themselves. Mass weddings of complete strangers chosen as mates by Moon. Flower peddling in the street, and repeated allegations of mind control and brainwashing.
Who can parents turn to when they realize their children have been innocently enslaved by Moon?
Within one weekend, my mind was totally coerced into leaving home, into leaving my parents, into dropping out of school, into thinking that I was working for God.
A federal investigation into Moon's finances led to a 1982 trial on charges of conspiracy and filing false tax returns.
I must tell you that I am innocent.
As a convicted felon, Moon was sent to the Federal Correctional Institution in Danbury, Connecticut. During his 13 months in prison, he faded from public consciousness.
Distinguished leaders, religious leaders, God requires good practice. Knowing this, we should proceed.
But Moon has been quietly gaining strength in the United States ever since. He still hints that he is the Messiah, most recently before 500 religious leaders in San Francisco in August 1990. While Moon remains a controversial spiritual leader, his church in America has a surprisingly small following, estimated to be no more than 5,000 members. His movement, once labeled a cult, is now more accurately described as a conglomerate.
At this point, we'll be going to...
From media operations in the nation's capital to substantial real estate holdings throughout the United States, and from large commercial fishing operations to advanced high-tech and computer industries, a Fifth Avenue publishing house, and literally dozens of other businesses, foundations, associations, institutes, and political and cultural groups. Moon and his money have become a force to be reckoned with.
All we know is they are spending a great deal in this country.
James Whalen was the editor and publisher of a Moon-financed newspaper, the Washington Times.
Probably more on influence and the obtaining of influence, of power, than of any organization I know of in this country. And that includes the AFL-CIO, that includes the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, that includes General Motors, that includes anybody.
How and why did Myung Moon amass such power and influence? The search for answers begins here in Korea, nearly 6,000 miles from America's shores. The Unification faith is a new religion. It traces its origins back to Easter Sunday, 1936, when Jesus Christ supposedly appeared and asked the 16-year-old Moon to complete God's work on earth. Moon's evangelical mission eventually landed him in a North Korean labor camp, where he claims he was tortured repeatedly. Moon escaped, and according to church lore, he marched south for weeks, carrying a wounded follower on his back.